literally feel like I'm completely in the middle of nowhere, and I must be the only person out here for probably about 10 miles. The road behind me, complete dirt road for the past almost 10 minutes. I'm at Upchurch Cemetery in search of the one and only Betty Gore. We are in Kansas, my friends, or as Dorothy would say, Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore, but today we are. We are about 50 minutes west of Wichita, Kansas. And if you know the story of Betty Gore and the Candy Montgomery story, maybe you do, maybe you don't. If you don't, we'll discuss it a little bit, but if you do, and that's why you clicked on this video, I always thought it was very interesting that Betty Gore is from the Dallas, Texas area, highly populated even back then, and her final resting place is up here in the middle of nowhere in Kansas. But I believe this is where she's from, and so she lays to rest here today. Let's try and go find her. What is going on, everyone? Welcome to my channel. If it's your first time here, my name is Nick. I'm your host. Today, like I said, we're searching for Betty Gore. Now, a couple things. One, today we will briefly discuss what happened to Betty Gore and the Candy Montgomery story. If you want to see the full story, I did a video last year where I went to all the locations regarding the Candy Montgomery case. That video will be available at the end of this. So like I said, I go into much more detail than I will today, but we'll still, if you have no idea who Betty Gore is or the Candy Montgomery case, we'll still discuss it briefly here today. Now, what I will do in this video, even though I still encourage you to go watch my previous video at the end, what I will do is I will throw in footage of Betty Gore's house where her murder, if you want to call it a murder, that's still debatable, we'll talk about that, where it all took place. That will be included in this video for you. So, without further ado, I know that was a long intro, but I've never quite been to a place, a cemetery this far out in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of cool though. So anyway, let's dive into one of the most chilling true crime cases in Texas history, the Candy Montgomery case. Betty Gore was a young mother whose life was brutally taken in the year 1980 in the Dallas, Texas area. On June 13th, 1980, a quiet Friday in Wiley, Texas. But that peace was shattered when Betty Gore, a 30-year-old middle school teacher and mother of two, was found dead in her home. She had been struck 41 times with an axe. Who's the killer, you might ask? It was her friend from church, Candy Montgomery. The two women had met at the Methodist Church in Lucas, Texas. Candy was part of their choir. Betty was the kind of person who tried to keep her family together. But behind the suburban smiles, there were secrets. About a year or so before the murder, Betty's wife, Alan Gore, him and Candy Montgomery mutually decide to have an affair. It was supposed to be emotionless, just something to do more so for fun, but they both did not want to wreck their families. That did not happen. Afterwards, Betty found out, tensions rose, and then, according to Candy Montgomery in her court trial, there came a confrontation in the Gore's utility room that turned deadly. When you look at that last name, Wiley, Betty Gore lived in the town of Wiley, Texas, just outside of Dallas. And today, it is called the most famous house in Wiley, Texas, for the dark stuff that took place there. All right, I think I found Betty's grave. Before we visit her, though, I want to go back in time about a year or so and take you to the former Gore house where it all happened. So let's take a trip back in time. Around 10 a.m. and Candy just left the church. The kids are at the church. She drops them off, and then she comes down to Dogwood Avenue in Wiley, Texas. And the reason she's coming to Betty's house is because of the fact that her daughter slept over there, and I guess she left her swimsuit or something along those lines, but she came to pick it up. I do not believe she knew what was going to happen next. Supposedly this is the most famous house in Wiley, Texas, and I'm looking at it right now. Well, we've made it to the home of Betty and Alan Gore, the most famous house in Wiley, Texas. Now, once the deed was done and everything was done, supposedly Candy hopped in the shower in this house. She took a shower. She left the dogs running outside, and then she left Betty's 1-month-old baby crying in the crib. And because Alan was out of town on a business trip, the baby was there all day crying in the crib by itself. And then Candy leaves like nothing ever happened. So right now we just left the murder house and we're driving as Candy would back to her house. And I was just telling my wife Nicole that I can't imagine what was going through her mind, like immediately after on this drive back. And we were just talking about, like, you know, there's sometimes people get like adrenaline rush, what'd you call it?
Yeah, it's like you have like a short period of time where you black out, and it's usually like due to anger, rage, or something. And I think that's actually a real thing, that like it's proven that does happen. You black out and you don't remember anything that happened while that was going on. And
she was like tested after too, where she had some type of psychological test done and she didn't actually remember what happened. So I don't know, maybe when she was driving back she's like, yeah, I did it. Or maybe when she was driving back she's like, that felt good, you know? Yeah.
Or she could have been like, what just happened?
Yeah,
1 minute we were talking and then the next minute I'm in my car.
Yeah, and I don't know. I usually like to thank my friends at findagrave.com. I still want to thank them because I, found the cemetery thanks to them, but they did not have a map of where she is buried. So I can only go off of Google Images, and I've been searching for a while, probably about close to 10 minutes. But I found her. She's in the far corner. Actually, the giveaway was this white cross right there, so thank you, Lisa. Oh, that's so sad. She was only 20 years old. Wow, poor girl. Should be right here. Holy cow. Betty Eileen Gore. So this is the Pomeroy plot, which makes sense. Pomeroy. Holy cow. She is, wow. Right there. Mother of Alyssa and Bethany. Born January 9th, 1950. Died June 13th, 1980. Only 30 years old. Which is a few years younger than me. Nice pink flowers for her. A young mother, gone at just the age of 30 years old. Well, this is for sure one of the most peaceful cemeteries I've ever been to, but also a stark contrast to the violence that ended her life. The trial shocked the nation. Candy Montgomery claimed self-defense. She said that Betty Gore had attacked her with the axe first. After a psychological testimony and a dramatic recounting of the fight, the jury delivered their verdict. And Candy was found not guilty. She walked away free. She eventually changed her name and moved away to try to escape this time in her life, but the controversies still remain and still follow her to this day. So much so that if you have not seen, there's 2 somewhat new full-blown series. One is on Hulu and one is on HBO Max, I believe, but they're both stories of the Candy Montgomery case. Different actors play in both the series. Actually, one of the Olsen sisters plays Candy Montgomery in the HBO Max version. That was my favorite, but it discusses and puts in great detail what these 2 went through. So if you have either one, definitely check them out. Nicole and I watched both and really enjoyed it, especially since we're from the Dallas area. It's cool to kind of put actual locations to the show, but I recommend checking them out. And no matter what you believe happened, whether it was self-defense or not, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It was still a tragedy and still a daughter left without a mother. Well, Betty, no matter what happened, it's still a sad story, and you died way too young. I know you're at peace now, and I know you're watching over your family. So we just want to say sorry for the way things ended for you here in this lifetime, but know you're in a better place. And it's nice to see she is buried with her parents, which is actually sad if you think about it. Her mom, Bertha, lived to 2010. Father Bob lived to 2003. And then poor Betty in 1980. Cannot imagine outliving your child, but they had to. So what happened to the rest of the family? Well, Alan Gore, Betty's widow, is still alive. Her daughters are still alive. Candy Montgomery is still alive and living, I think in Georgia was the last I heard, working as a psychiatrist, believe it or not. And Candy and her husband, Pat, got divorced about 2 years after the case. He's still around too. And Betty is resting here at this highly peaceful cemetery out in the middle of Kansas. Well, y'all, that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Since I was able to do the Candy Montgomery locations and discuss that story, this was kind of the closure for me. I knew eventually I wanted to make it up to Kansas and see Betty Gore's gravesite. We did, we checked it off, and now that story is complete on my channel here. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to go see the full-blown Candy Montgomery locations video, it'll be here. I hope you watch, and I'll see you there.